On Monday Night Football, the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Chicago Bears 29-14. And look, I hated this game. The Monday Night Football broadcasters are awful. It was a boring first half. The refs were terrible. And then even Justin Fields had the game-winning touchdown drive and still lost the game. I was like, just like the quadruple takeout. It was just not a fun game. That's not the right way to put it. Something like that. Honestly, I will say I'm glad Pittsburgh won the game, though, and that's despite lamenting that the Bears didn't win, because I love Justin Fields. I want to see him have a good career, and him having a game-winning drive there would have been awesome, but it kind of ended in an even better way where Justin Fields gets the respect for the final drive, but I'm glad Pittsburgh won because Chicago's not going anywhere this year, and Pittsburgh winning made the AFC North really, really interesting, where you got the Ravens at 6-2, the Steelers at 5-3, the Browns and Bengals both at 5-4, and so I'm glad that Pittsburgh remained in the mix with 5 wins, because them going, 4-4 would not be as interesting for the AFC North. And again, Chicago's not going anywhere, so I was glad Pittsburgh actually won the game. Now, I want to say first, before we get into the refs, because I have a lot to say there, give Justin Fields, the Bears rookie quarterback, time to develop. I thought he got better and better as the game went on, got more comfortable, and he'll be all right. Give Justin Fields time to keep developing. He had a really sweet touchdown in the fourth quarter where you put the Bears up 27-26. What I call the quote game-winning touchdown. I got an injured finger. I can't do the quotes with my index finger. No one cares. Justin Fields extended the play. He's rolling left. He flips his hips, throws a touchdown in the left corner of the end zone. And Matt Nagy might get fired. For example, I have no idea why Matt Nagy keeps running the Wildcat on offense when he's got Justin Fields, a quarterback who can run incredibly well. Like, why do you need to run the Wildcat when you have Justin Fields who can run? It makes no sense to me. I'm like, what are you doing there? I don't get that. But even if Matt Nagy does get fired, I have a lot of confidence in the rookie quarterback, Justin Fields. He's going to be all right. And I believe in him long term. He gets better and better every time I watch him, and I thought he progressed even throughout the Pittsburgh Steelers game. So I got a lot of faith and a lot of confidence in Justin Fields. And man, did anyone hear? I mentioned that the Monday Night Football broadcasters are awful. And look, I am the last person to criticize people making mistakes. I say dumb stuff all the time, but it is kind of fun to point out. Anyone here when, gosh, what's the name of the broadcast? I don't even like any of the broadcasters. Forget their name. I know. Brian Greasy, I think, Bob Greasy, Louis Riddick, and then there's the guy, the play-by-play guy, forget his name. He does hockey. I don't remember. He did SportsCenter like a long time ago. He's got the bulging disc moment. Look that up. It's really fun. Bulging disc, quote unquote. He called Justin Fields young Josh. And I'm like, that's rough. And you saw Louis Riddick's face, like, want to correct him, but then say nothing. And I'm like, I don't know why. Why can't we just say, hey, you screwed up? Like, why can't his other people, like the other people doing the broadcast with him did notice that for sure. And they kept their mouths shut. Hey, if I ever had another person doing this, like, I'd love to have a producer who listens to the show, who maybe could edit for me. That'd be amazing. We're not there yet. Someday, maybe. But someone who like listens to me doing the show, kind of does it along with me back and forth. Like Pat McAfee has the Stooges, which they're great. I love them. And I'd love to have someone who's like, you don't mean young Josh, you mean Justin Fields. Like you want people to correct you. And I couldn't believe that Louis Riddick and Bob or Brian Greasy, whatever his name is, didn't correct him. I'm like, hey, throw the guy a lifeline, help him out. He got the wrong name and you heard him. I saw it on your face. You heard him get that wrong and you said nothing. It's like if I'm ever at a restaurant and I got a bunch of food in my beard, you better help me out and say something so I can clean it off. And it just was like, man, disappointing moment. The first half was not very fun to watch in this game. Now, the Bears did make things interesting in the fourth quarter. The Bears went from down 20-6 to up 27-26 and then lost 27-29. Game had a fun finish. Now, this game was one of the worst officiated games I've ever seen in my life. And I don't say that lightly. I lived for a couple of years with my best friend's dad was a ref. And I lived with them. And I totally know the struggle of being a ref. And I respect them. It's way harder than people realize. There's little things you never notice. And man, there were so many in this game, though. So despite the fact that I hate criticizing refs. And I think if you lose a game and a ref decides it, usually I will say, well, you should have made more plays and not left the game open where a ref could have decided the game. However, this game was awful. I mean, there were ridiculous ticky-tacky penalties called. There were some obvious penalties that were not called. I'm like, how you're calling that, but not that? Like, Justin Fields got nailed late multiple times, and you're like, why are we not protecting the rookie quarterback Justin Fields? That seems a little bit weird. And look, I'm not a Bears fan. I'm not a Steelers fan. I got no dog in the fight. In fact, I told you why I was glad Pittsburgh actually won the game. But it was insane, the way the calls were going against Chicago. And some of them were justified. A couple offsides penalties at the end of the game. Robert Quinn was offsides. Totally, I agree. But what about the Bears' touchdown pass to Jimmy Graham that got called back? That was a terrible, like a low block. What are you talking about? What? Or the insane taunting penalty on Cassius Marsh where the dude did nothing. It's bizarre. And it felt like a small town high school game where the refs are all from the town of the home team, like on Friday Night Lights or something, where you're like, are all these refs from Pittsburgh or something? Like, what's happening here? Do they have money on the game? Like, why do they feel a need to so desperately come after Chicago over and over and over again? And they were not calling things fairly. Calls were not going both ways. I just felt bad for the Bears coach, Matt Nagy, because he can't even say anything after the game. Like, he's got to keep his mouth shut or he gets fined. So wrong. And or Cassius Marsh, who just got elevated from the practice squad. Like, he got a sack and they're like, nah, take it back, penalized for taunting, which he said nothing. Again, like, he's just looking at the top. I don't know. Apparently you can't even look at the other sideline, or that's a taunting penalty now. It's ruining the game. Refs are inserted into way too many football games, and this Bears-Pittsburgh game was the epitome of what's wrong with refereeing right now, with officiating in the NFL. And again, some of the penalties made sense. Robert Quinn was offsides in the final drive, whatever. And I didn't really appreciate Mike Tomlin being like, oh, I support the penalties being called. It's like, well, two things. First of all, you won, so of course you're going to say you like the penalties being called. Number two, I have a theory, and I've shared it before, but I've told you before. Here is why I believe the NFL has been so hard on taunting penalties, is they saw what happened with Mason Rudolph, the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, and Myles Garrett a couple years ago. There was he said, she said. One guy said that a racial slur was mentioned. One guy said it was not. And the NFL said, we don't want that drama. We never want an argument. We don't want any controversy about that kind of stuff. So basically, they're like, don't talk to each other. You have to be a robot. You can't celebrate. You can't say anything. You can't taunt to each other. Nothing. You can't say anything after you make a big play. It's gone to, I think the spirit of the rule makes sense. The NFL's trying to protect themselves from getting in trouble, having a guy say the wrong words, and getting in big trouble. I understand that, but it has gone way too far. It's horrible. It's so bad. What? How is looking at the sideline a penalty now? What? And then did anyone see the ref kind of basically butt bounce him? He turned into Cassius Marsh to make him run into did you? I saw that and I'm like, what's happening? This is insanity. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers Bears Monday Night Football game was one of the worst officiated games I've ever seen in the NFL. And look, I don't think it's wrong to be like, did the refs have money on the game? Was the mafia threatening them? What happened? Because it was so one-sided, more one-sided than I've ever seen. I'm like, did they want? They clearly, I thought, wanted Pittsburgh to win. I just and I don't know that I fully believe that, because I hate to believe that, but it would be wrong. No one's gonna say that. Everyone's afraid to call it the NFL. I'm self-employed. I don't give a rat's behind. I can say whatever I want. And I looked at that referee, the officiating, and I'm like, this is horrible. This is so bad, and I've never seen it that bad, and not in a long, long time. So, what a horribly officiated game. Bears, Steelers, Monday Night Football.